Happy Wednesday. I hope you are cool where you're at. All I'm going to tell you is down here in South Florida, it is hot and muggy. I call this swamp ass weather down here right now because by the end of the day, your ass feels like a swamp. In case you're wondering what you're watching, this is the Imperfect Action live stream. Thank you for stopping by. Who am I? I am Rob Fenstermaker, former corporate burnout survivor turned kingdom builder, your kingdom builder. Hey, it's a couple things I wanted to mention. This coming Friday is the virtual Friday whiskey hour. That's an opportunity to bring people together to close out the work week, have some meaningful conversation. The virtual doors open at 4:50 p.m. Eastern time. We go live at 5. Always have some interesting conversation. Our last conversation dealt with the different generations and how they have impacted the world. Next Tuesday is the Iron Sharpens Iron community. Again, it's another community where we bring people together to have some conversation. But enough of that. It's time for the Imperfect Action live stream. It's time to introduce today's guest, Tom Briggs. Tom Briggs is the founder of Epigraph. He's a chief mercenary officer. He's a pacifist black belt. As a fractional CMO focused on brand strategy and advisement, he's committed to leadership and growth. And Epigraph itself focuses on the highly disruptive spaces and industries. It's quite a mouthful, but Tom, you're doing quite a bit out there. Thank you for stopping by.
That was like a launching pad intro, Rob. I'm a little bit out of breath just hearing you say that, man.
I know. The other thing I forgot to mention, you have one incredible head of hair. I got to admit, I have hair jealousy when it comes to that. You have an incredible head of hair. You know what? My hair, go back to my wedding day. I was married in my late 20s. And if you look at the picture from the back of the church, it looks like a Jewish wedding because it looks like I'm wearing a yarmulke. So that's where my hair has been gone for that long. So
I got it cut just for you, man. So I wanted to look tight. You got the sweet beard though. I can't do that. It looks I look straggly.
Yes. I got to take care of it. It's the only reason my wife will let me keep it. She says, just keep it clean and neat, which I do that, I've learned the product you got to put on the beard says everything, so I put a little beard oil, a little beard wash. It makes all the difference. With that. Do when I started growing a beard, it was actually during COVID. I'd never grown a beard before. And, when you're forced to work at home, I'm like, hey, who wants to shave? What need is there to shave? So I didn't shave. And that's kind of where the beard came in.
Looks good on you, man. You should definitely keep it. Yeah. Tell your wife I approve.
I'm sure she'll.
if my vote counts for anything.
Yes. But, before we start, I share with you, you're exactly in the same space that my wife is, that, that brand strategy, retail brand strategy. What got you into that? What was the thing that really moved you into that?
Yeah, it's funny. As you and I were talking before we went live, being good at brand strategy means zooming out and looking at the macro picture. You need to be able to look at global trends, consumer trends. You really need to know the direction which the current is flowing. And I'm an Enneagram 5, which is just like, give me more information. I want to see all the things and know all the things, such that I can build the models and just arrive at understanding. So for me, just personality wise, it fits. It's a great way to just be infinitely, endlessly curious. And as you mentioned, being a contracting mercenary CMO, I get to jump in and learn about different industries. I look back over the past year, got to work with a small rotorcraft manufacturer out of Mesa, Arizona, worked with a spice company. So as someone who geeks out over just diving in and learning about new industries, new lanes, new verticals, it really, being an entrepreneur for me, I get to do what I love, which is honestly the biggest privilege. So yeah, hung out my shingle in 2021, and so far so good. It's fun building your own thing, and Epigraph is it's a life project, and I'm just looking forward to evolving it as it needs to grow.
Now, you said you started out in 2021. Was this a result of everything that happened in 2020? You just finally said enough is enough and just embarked on this journey?
It was partially a result of the upside down times. Going in, I was with a small agency here in town. We did the remote work thing, and we just didn't remote all that well. We kind of drifted apart. And so when I got the text and call and chatted with my boss for the first time in 3 weeks, kind of knew what he wanted to say.
Yeah.
So yeah, my wife has a 9 to 5, so she can, balance out the family. And I can be, it set me free. My dad was a solopreneur. He has been for 25 years. So I guess deep in my DNA, it was there. I'd never really said, "Oh, I'm going to go start my own thing." But there's a freedom in punching your own ticket. You get to create the game you want to play, invite in the
Yeah.
people you want to play with, and it's fun if for those who are up to it and willing to kind of ride the high highs and also spelunk around the low lows.
Yeah. Yeah. And, when you're in that entrepreneurial, solopreneur space, you got to have a brand. You got to create that brand. And brand is important because that's really what people recognize the most is the brand you put out there. Um, and as you're working with your clients and you're discussing the importance of brand, what are things you really want them to focus on as they build that brand?
Yeah, I'll take a step back. And, the word brand means so many different things to different people. It can mean the logo, it can mean the colors you choose, it can mean the tagline, but it's also the shirt you choose to wear, what you put behind you on the live stream. It's all the
Yeah.
intangibles, and the way that a service or product is experienced. And like you said, in this current day and age, we are over communicated. There's never been more images, words, sounds flying at us. So really, I define brand as just that razor rock solid consistency of you
Yeah.
get the same thing every single time. You know what you're going to get when you pick up an iPhone. It's going to match what happens when you walk into the Mac store or Apple store. And that matches the billboard you saw and the radio ad you heard. And achieving that consistency and coherency is, it's an endless game. You can throw a lot of people and energy at that. I'm here in Portland, Oregon, just on the outskirts. Nike World Headquarters is about 5 miles
Yeah.
down the road. Had the opportunity to work with them on a few projects, and every time I do, it's a masterclass in brand strategy, brand training. It takes a lot of effort and energy to make things consistent. It looks easy, but there's a lot of people, a lot of energy that goes into it. So yeah, circling back to your question, I find that it's easier to achieve that consistency if you root a brand in core values because it becomes very true. It becomes true to a leadership team. If you're a solopreneur, it becomes rooted in what you're all about, what you stand for,
Yeah.
and you get that really nice integrity in the person you are at home is the person you are working with your clients. It's the person you are when you're out on the town Friday night. It just allows you to live a better, more holistically
Yeah.
connected life, in my
Yeah.
experience.
Yeah. And that's the journey I love to take to live life holistically. Don't be one person in the office, the next person at home, and another person when you're out. You got to be that same person.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things that's really important is you got to know your truths as well.
Yeah, yeah,
Just
yeah,
don't believe something because everybody else believes it. Why is it so important to you that you have to believe this? And you really do that deep dive. I've done that
yeah,
deep dive on myself.
yeah, yeah. And for anyone who's like, oh, values, it's sometimes it's a fraught word and it means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. Put simply, if someone's looking to discern their values, I say, bring up your calendar. Look at what you've been putting your time into for the past month. Look at where your talents are best manifested. Where are you getting the most traction in the marketplace? And then treasure your money. Where are you, what are
Yeah.
you putting your money after? What do you believe in? Are you putting your money toward experiences, great vacations? Or are you buying more,
Yeah.
stuff to fill up, your house with? And really, that can be a nice way if someone's kind of wrestling. Career transitions are a great time to do that assessment and say,
Yeah.
are these core values? Because they can evolve over time. What I've found is values are generally pretty solid. When you find something, they just really stick. And that's true of a startup. If I'm coaching founders, I'm like, okay, let's pick, the 3 to 5 things, try and keep it, one word, that just describe you, and they'll survive the pivot. They'll survive an evolution, but they emerge from who you are and really what you think you can offer to the marketplace.
Yeah. And yeah, I agree. And, when you find that foundation of your truths, it gives you the ability to stand. You can take that stand because
Yeah.
one thing that's going to happen as an entrepreneur, as a solopreneur, just in life in general, life is going to happen. No one's immune from
Yeah.
that,
Yeah. Yeah.
and you have to have that foundation built beforehand before it happens. Once it happens, it's a little late. You got to have it
Yeah.
built beforehand.
Yep. Yeah. And it gives you something to focus on. There's a great quote. I've heard it from a few different people, but if it's not a hell yes, then it's a no. Really, they will steer you toward what to say no to, such that, we're all given a limited amount of time. Even the richest
Right.
billionaire can't buy more time on this planet. So you can focus in on what really matters and what's going to get the most impact and what you're uniquely gifted for in building,
Yeah.
your kingdom.
Yeah. And time to me is our most valuable asset. And too many people don't understand that. You know,
Absolutely.
you could, we both could lose our houses today and get a new house. We could lose all our stuff and get new stuff. We could lose all our money and get new money. We could even lose our life and get our life back. But once you lose time, it's gone forever. You're never getting it back. So use it
Yeah.
wisely. Use
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
wisely. Use it effectively and be intentional about it. Um, you talked about Nike. You're in the backyard of Nike. And I mean, the greatest campaign slogan, just do it. That's
Yeah.
what life's about. Just
You know
do
where
it.
that came from?
No, I don't.
There's a backstory. So
Okay.
Nike is here, and so is Wyden Kennedy, which is the largest, most longstanding independent creative agency in the world. Multiple locations, but birthed here in Portland, and their first tentpole client was Nike.
Okay.
So one of the founders, gosh, I can't remember if it was. I'll get flamed for this because I don't know the narrative. But one of the founders, they got the Nike account. And
Yeah.
he was like racking his brain, like, man, I gotta find a tagline. They had the logo. They bought that logo for $25 from a Portland State University student.
Okay.
Went back and paid more later, but they're like, man, we need a tagline. So he was up late, racking his brain, and he saw this interview with this convicted serial killer down in Texas. And the guy was like going up to the chair or whatever, and they're like, okay, sir, do you have any last words? His last words were "just do it."
Do it.
So shows that
That's
shows
funny.
that slogan in a very different light. But yeah, I mean, inspiration can come from anywhere for sure.
Yeah.
Um,
That's
yeah,
interesting.
yeah.
I'm assuming you've seen the movie Air about how
It's
Nike.
great. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I love how it's represented, and I've heard differing takes on how true to form it was. But yeah, Phil is he was a cutthroat dude. Shoe Dog.
Yeah.
It was a great book that kind of
Yeah.
unpacks the early days. Yeah, he's a fascinating story of where they birthed that.
Yeah, yeah, and it's made for Hollywood, so I'm sure there's a lot of truth to it, but there's obviously a lot of drama associated with it as well to make it a good movie. But I liked the movie. It wasn't the greatest movie I ever saw, but it told a good story, and I liked it. The thing that I thought was most funny about it, it's basically about Michael Jordan. They never really showed Michael Jordan. They
Yeah,
just
that
showed the
was
back. Whoever was playing Michael Jordan, they just showed the back of his head. That was it. And I think
masterful.
maybe he had two words.
Yep, yep, yep. Got the best endorsement deal of all time, man. I
Yeah.
mean, literally just yeah, said I
And
want
he
to
changed the
cut.
game. He changed the way marketing was done.
Yeah, yeah,
He changed that whole industry, turned it upside down. You talk about a disruptor. He was a disruptor in how he did or how he approached uh, promoting that brand.
yeah. And you see the power of that's at a large scale, but that's a personal brand. What is he going to put his name on? And the quality of the air pockets inside those Jordans. That I've talked to some of the researchers who are behind developing those, and there's engineering, there's quality. So you think about what he stands for as an individual around performance, excellence, achievement, and linking that with a tangible item like a product. It's the same thing with Jobs and the
Yeah,
iPhone. Those two are inextricably linked in that the person is almost manifest in the product. And at a smaller scale, you can do that as a coach, you can do that as a service provider. What you do and the way you do it comes through, and that becomes, those two become inextricably linked.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
And I agree. And they had that alpha personality, which okay, which is fine, but they also knew their main thing. And I like to say, once you know your main thing, keep your main thing as your main thing, and that keeps
yeah,
you on course, keeps you focused on what it is you want to do. But you got to go through the process of trying to figure out what that main thing is for you. What is it that moves you? What is it that excites you? What is it that gets you up in the morning when your feet hit the ground and you're ready to go?
yeah. Yeah, and some people's hair lit on fire back, a few years ago when Nike stood with Kaepernick. There were people who literally
Yeah,
took their Nikes out and lit them on fire. But if you look at that, Nike has always been, rebellious. They've always
yeah,
stood for, the
for,
things
for sale.
that it didn't feel self-serving. If you
Yeah,
looked deep at that and you looked at Nike's backstory, it felt on point. It's the
yeah,
same thing about Patagonia becoming a wildlands conservancy, a nonprofit. It makes
yeah,
sense with the narrative. And if people come to me and they're like, well, should we wade into the back and forth of modern life and whatever? I'm like, well, is it authentic? Is it true to who
yeah.
you are, or are you just kind of blowing in the current winds? If it feels true, not to say you need to like put it out there in every single format, but if you feel it's your duty.
Mhm.
When the Supreme Court rolled back Citizens United in 2011, they effectively said, okay, corporations, you have free speech rights. You are effectively people. So you take corporations that can, walk and talk and act like people, add 10 years of, in my opinion, a lack of vision for where
Yeah,
we want to go as humans, maybe as a democracy, maybe as a world. Of course, corporations are going to step into that gap and say, "Hey, this is the type of world we suggest that maybe we should have, for better or for worse." There are
mhm.
billionaires on both coasts, and in the
Yeah,
middle who want to steer this experiment in a certain direction. Whether that's through AI or traditional industries. So, yeah. Anyway,
yeah.
it's never dull. It's always an
Yeah,
interesting
and I,
space to be in.
I've definitely have my political opinions, and they've definitely evolved with some of the stuff that I've seen going on. You talked about corporations. Um, I think that we give too much power to corporations right now, yeah, which is evidenced by what happened in 2020. Who was it who was kicked to the curb? It wasn't corporations, it was small business.
Yeah, there is a lot of money in Washington, and you look at the lobbyists. Facebook now has more lobbyists. Social media networks have more lobbyists than the tobacco companies ever did. So,
Yeah.
I mean, take your pick. You can. The nature of yeah, of capitalism is that there's money in politics. So yeah, I mean, there should probably be some safeguards such that
Yeah, I agree.
those who walk in with big jingling bags of money don't have an
Yeah.
outsized share
You know
of.
what the importance is, kind of getting with, so maybe circling back, it's leadership. I know you're passionate about leadership. We need leaders. We need value-centered, principle-centered leaders now more than ever.
Yeah.
Just don't be, and I'm so sick of people going to Washington on both sides, and someone walks in with a big checkbook and they suddenly have changed their opinion. You got to know what you believe in and stand by it. I don't care if I disagree with what you believe, as long as you believe it passionately. Hey, that's fine. We can have
Yeah.
the debate. That's fine. But don't be a sellout. And that's the problem. That's the problem. And I think that for men in particular, we got to rediscover the idea of manhood. And I love this topic you wanted to present: healthy modern masculinity. And I see a lot of men that really struggle with identity issues because for me in particular, I know that I really wrap myself around a 9 to 5 identity back during my corporate time. I went through 3 corporate downsizings. And when that rug gets pulled out from underneath you, the wind gets just taken out of your sails as a man, because as the expectation is, you're to be the one that's going to leave the cave every morning and go out and hunt and gather and drag everything back and take care of the family. And when that's taken away from you, it sucks. It really
Yeah.
sucks.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you see that. That's even more true. You look at the deaths of despair and some of the research that's shown about, yeah, it's just the hollowing out of various industries in the U.S. Yeah,
Mhm.
lack of purpose can be for all of us, but particularly for men, it can be a death sentence. Like we need to have something that to throw ourselves at. We need to be providers, and yeah, the masculine. There's masculine and feminine in both genders.
Oh
I
yeah.
mean, there are men who have feminine
I,
traits, and there are women who have masculine traits. So it's
mhm.
and I think there's interesting conversations around that. And what does it look like, yeah, to be a good man, a good provider? I really am interested in what is it Richard Reeves, Boys and Men, kind of looking at some of the research that's looking at how do we, advance modern men and boys, because statistically it's not great. And kind of this thought thinking that, I mean, in advancing women, we're not, men are not well served, but it doesn't become a zero sum game. Like, we can all become better. We can advance women, advance men, advance, people of, our skin color, those who, who don't have our skin color. Ideally, it doesn't have to be this zero sum game where, because you got yours, I lose mine. The more time that I spend as an entrepreneur, I believe this is a world of wealth. It's oftentimes not evenly distributed, but I think there's abundance. And for those who, and granted, we all, start out with a different backpack as far as weighting, and we all have different challenges, but there's opportunity ahead of us, and really the locus of control. And this is what entrepreneurship teaches. It starts here. It's not, yes, the economy will go up, it'll go down, it'll go sideways, but control what you can control, and just try and assuage and work against the things that you can't.
Yeah, like I said, control what you control. And I see, obviously we've got something coming up here in November that I know has got a lot of people anxious, and don't give that control over your life, because is there anything I can do about this upcoming election? No. I mean, other than just go out and cast my vote, that's all I can do. Yeah. And I pretty much have made my mind who I'm going to cast my vote for, and I don't think there's anything that's going to change my mind. So I'm fine with that. I'm comfortable with that, but I'm not going to give that power over my lives. And I see too many people, especially men, they give the wrong things power over their lives, and they create a false identity. Like I said, I had that 9-to-5 identity. That's who I was. You go out and meet some men, and what's the first thing? Hey, what do you do? Well, I'm an attorney. I'm a doctor. And if you don't have the right thing to say, maybe you're not in the club there.
Yeah.
So that whole identity piece, and you circling back to something you also said about boys. I did about 15 years of youth work, and so I worked with a lot of boys, and I could always, without a doubt, tell which boys did not have a father figure in their life. It was as obvious as a sore thumb. You could tell right away.
Yeah.
And I would gravitate towards them. I mean, I grew up with a father, but I would gravitate towards them because, for the most part, that's what they wanted. That's what they hungered for, was that male role model. And I took it seriously. I took it very seriously. And now when I run into some of these boys, not boys now, they're young men, and they share with me some of the things that difference that it made in their life at that moment. That I to know that I played some part in who they've become. That's part of what life's about. That's part of serving humanity, serving mankind. And that's what it means to be me. It means to me to be a man as well.
Yep. No, I completely agree. Father to two boys, they're a little younger than your kids, but you see the importance of male role models. And unfortunately, the Catholic Church and the Boy Scouts of America have fucked it up for everybody, where it's weird, and it's awkward. And I don't know how we work against that, but we need to make it acceptable for men to re-engage with, young men again, safely.
And, how do we work against that? Well, I mean, again, you're going back to, how do you work? You just do it one bite, eat the elephant. You do it one bite at a time. Yeah. That's how you do it. And you got to be intentional about it. Yeah. And you're up against some dark things with that. But I look at it that each and every day is an opportunity to do something about it. That's where our opportunity is, in this thing we call today. It's not in yesterday. Yesterday's over. It's not in tomorrow. And why worry about tomorrow? One, there's not even a guarantee we're going to get it tomorrow, but we have today. Yeah. And if you want to make a difference, it's in today.
Yep. Yeah. Well said. What do you? I want to flip the script a little bit, Rob. Okay. And what are you excited about this year? What's shaping up? Where I know you're doing your whiskey happy hours. Actually, we can talk about whiskey after this, because I've been doing some. I'm trying to increase my palate. I know you're the expert, so I'm going to flip the script and pick your brain on what's good.
I'm far from an expert on whiskey, but. What am I looking excited to? You kind of said, you used the word earlier, experiential. And, my wife and I, we're at this stage of our lives right now where we just want experiences. And we've got a big experience coming up here at the end of the year. I'm not supposed to say it, but I'm going to say it because my wife and her girlfriend have a YouTube channel. We're doing this with them, and they're going to have a big reveal coming up. But we are going to Australia and New Zealand in December. It's just one of
Ooh,
these things that
nice.
just kind of landed there. And I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, this is going to be fun. And I've done my share of travel. After Australia, the only two continents I've yet to have gone to will be Africa and Antarctica. So I pretty much have, I've seen Asia, I've been to Europe, but I'm looking forward to this trip. We've got it all planned out. It's going to be about 3 weeks, flying into Sydney, then flying up to Cairns, going to do the Barrier Reef, then
Nice.
flying over to Auckland. There's an area called Hobbiton, that's where they film Lord of the Rings. We're going to
Yep.
do that, and we're going to end up in a place called Lake Taupo.
Nice, nice, nice. I love it. I love it. Well, it's a good time of year. So if democracy collapses, you can hang out in New Zealand with all the internet billionaires and, just like have a
Oh, that's
bunker
right.
and, just wait till things calm down.
Yeah, they will calm down. You know what? Yeah, here's the thing. I have faith in humanity. I have always had faith in humanity, and I think that we let the fringes on either side of this dictate what we're doing. And I put the fringes 10% on either side, and us 80% that are stuck in the middle. We just want to live our lives. We just want
Yeah.
to live our lives. And just the thing to me, the greatest gift we can give someone is just to listen. We don't listen anymore. We just
Yeah.
don't listen. We become a society, become a world that we think he or she who shouts the loudest and says the most insane things, they're going to be the ones that win the argument.
Yeah, yeah. The negative incentives of social media to keep us all riled up and activated, whether that's good or bad, just emotionally triggered, is not good. Yeah, it's funny. You can tell a lot about someone by whether they have a high or low view of humanity. Whether they think we're angels or devils, and it's weird. Like humans are weird in that we can create a Hitler, but we can also create a Gandhi or a Mother Teresa.
Yeah.
It's funny. I asked a cousin of mine as a pastor. I'm like, are humans good or evil? Like really, at the end of the day, and it's like, well, yes. We
Yeah.
contain
Well, yeah, you're right.
multitudes. We contain
You're right. Yeah.
multitudes. Yeah.
You're right. Yeah.
There's that old, it's been attributed to a number of indigenous people, but there's that story about how there's the light wolf and the dark wolf inside of us, and
Yeah.
which one wins? Well, it's the one we feed, and I think there's something to that. If you think
Yeah.
best of people, you will genuinely build your life and conduct your business in a way such that it becomes a self-fulfilling cycle. And I think it goes the other way
Yeah.
too. If you think you're always going to get screwed over and you take a very aggressive reactive posture, you kind of will make your own personal hell in that, I believe.
Yeah.
I've seen people go both directions, and it's so it's interesting. We're best when we think about what we're focusing on, for sure, right?
Yeah, you're right. And you're right. And I heard an interview one time. I can't remember who the race car driver was, but they asked him a question. When you get in, he talked about when he loses control of the car, and he says the most surest way to ensure that I don't go into the wall is I continue to look down the track. I'm trying to steer out of this, and I'm looking down the track. If I look at the wall, I'm going straight into the wall, without a
Yeah,
doubt. If I'm
yeah,
looking down the track, I have a chance. I'm giving myself a chance. And we just got to give ourselves a chance of what our focus is. What do we want to focus on?
yeah,
Do we want to
yeah,
focus on the horrible things in this world, or do we want to focus on the beautiful things in this world? I want to focus on the beautiful things. I'm very much someone who loves nature. I love getting out in nature.
yeah,
And
yeah,
being
yeah,
down here in South Florida, there's some pretty cool things to go out and see.
yeah,
As the crow flies, I'm a mile from the beach. I can go down the beach. I can see dolphins swimming, manatees. I will see sharks. I'll see all kinds of seabirds, and I love
yeah,
that. The
yeah.
thing that's cool to me about nature is it just is. It just is. And when you really experience it in a mindful way, it just is. There's no yesterday. There's no tomorrow. It just is.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. When you're able to get out on it more because you're training for your. Aren't you training for some
I'm
upcoming
training for a
race?
half marathon coming up.
Yeah,
Yeah. So
yeah,
like a fool, I got a half marathon coming up. So I picked the hottest time of the year when training starts.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I got a run scheduled tomorrow, just 30 minutes. It's going to be light because, like I said, it's heat and humidity down here. Feels like you're running with a 50-pound bag of concrete on your back when you're running
Hmm.
right now. So,
Hmm. There's it's amazing discipline to enter that pain cave where yes it's physical but there's also a mental, especially in distance running, there's really that
yeah,
mental game of you can go as long as you believe you can go in a way, and provided you don't injure yourself or wreck your
yeah,
body, but there's a strong mental game to it where you're strengthening your mind as well as
yeah.
conditioning your body to run that what is that, 13.1, 13.2 miles I
13.1
have.
miles. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So, and I ran my first marathon earlier in the year. And
Nice.
how I was able to get through that, because I ran a half marathon the day before, but how I got through that marathon is I did this run, walk, run method. And that's not how I train. But I went to the expo the day before, and they said, well, do the run, walk, one. And so I
Yeah.
hooked up with a group. They were doing 90-second run, 30-second walk. But their 90-second run, they were pushing 9-minute miles. And that's about the limit of what I can do. And I lasted about 3 miles. I'm like,
Hmm.
I'm not going to last 26 miles like this. So I,
Yeah.
kind of fell back. My wife was in it as well. So I, kind of caught up with her, and we found a group that was just doing 30-30. That's what got me to the end. That's the only way I
Yeah.
got to the end.
Yeah.
That's how you got
Yeah.
to do it.
Man,
But,
I did a marathon. Oh, go ahead.
no, I was going to say, go ahead. You did a marathon.
Yeah, it was long time ago. My younger brother, talked me into doing the LA marathon, which gosh, this must have been like I just graduated college. It was like '05. They've since updated the course. Like it's much more. There are nice parts of LA. You run out to the beach. Back then, it was just all downtown. It was flat, which was nice, and
Mhm.
you're in downtown LA, so pretty much the entire course was lined with people. So you got good support,
Yeah.
but it was just a lot of pounding the pavement.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, they talk about hitting the wall, that wall at,
When you hit it.
mile 19, 20. There is something there where, you kind of come to the end of yourself. No matter how well trained you are, it's like, okay, are we going to do this or are we going
That's
to
when you got to dig deep.
throw it in?
And that's,
Yeah.
that's when I did that, and the funny thing was when I ran that half marathon the day before, and I got through the finish line, fine. And as soon as I crossed the finish line, I'm like, damn, tomorrow when I hit that half marathon, I've only gone half the way. So I got two back-to-back half marathons. So yeah, there were
Yeah.
some head games going on that next day. There was
Yeah.
definitely some head games.
Yeah, there's a run here that Nike puts on called the Hood to Coast, where you start up at the top of Mount Hood, and it's a relay
Okay.
race. So you're on a team with I think there's about 15, 16 people, and everyone runs three legs, and they're not
Okay.
that long, but it's such that you end up starting at the mountain and you end at the beach, right there,
Yeah,
looking at the Pacific Ocean. It's amazing.
that's cool.
But yeah, the first leg, not bad. They're only about like, it works out to like 5 to 7 miles, and some of them have different elevations. So it's not really far, but man, by the time that third leg hits and you've spent like so much time running in a van with 8 other people, you slept in a field the night before, like huddled in a sleeping bag. It's just like, man, I want this to be done. I want to end this. I want to go get a nice shower, like meet up with
Yeah.
the other half of the team on the beach at the end, cheering our last guy or girl, drink a beer, listen to some live music on the Oregon coast. Yeah, so no, I feel you. There's great things that can come from just it's good to keep ourselves healthy, right? Just that
Yeah.
activity. Anytime my mentally I start going to not good places, I'm like, I just got to get moving. I got to like hop
Yeah.
on the
It
stationary
is.
cycle
That's
or
it.
get out for a walk. Something as simple as a walk. It just is such a nice reset.
Oh yeah. And as we age, you've got to stay active. And I know you're into combat arts.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. It's something I found after college where, I finished my formal education. And I'm like, man, I need structure. I was in formal education for, 16 years. I'm like, I need a ladder to keep climbing. And I'd never done martial arts as a kid, but stumbled across kind of an art that drew from a few different disciplines. And it was really good. It resonated. A good martial art, a good school will train the body. It will train the mind. It was just, and there's so many different types of combat arts. I mean, I've studied a little bit of Kung Fu, Jiu-Jitsu, Taekwondo, Hapkido, some of the Kali stick fighting from, Micronesia, Thai
yeah.
kickboxing. Every nation body type has its own way of saying, okay,
Yeah.
how do we fight? And human bodies are generally like different sizes, but all joints kind of work a certain way, and there's things that they're interpreted differently from different regions, or if that art was birthed out of martial law or a police force trying to keep things versus a peasantry trying to like defend against riders on horseback. You look at, there's just really interesting, intriguing things about combat and the combat arts that fascinating to study.
In sports like that, I mean, I wrestled when I was in high school, and that was, I mean, you get in a wrestling match and you think there are 3 2-minute periods.
Yeah.
By 6 minutes of wrestling, you're dead. You are just so exhausted. But
Yeah.
things like that. I mean, when you get into those type of physical activities, you exert a lot of energy in a quick way, in an intense way. I mean, what is it when you're engaged with an opponent? How do you approach that as you go out onto the mat?
Yeah, you really, it's good. There's a lot that goes into it. Staying
Yeah.
loose, staying calm. The fastest way to wear yourself out in a fight is to get really, really tense and not breathe. If you do those two things, you'll just your stamina will crater. You won't be able to stick with it. So yeah, just the mental conditioning, and that's what you get from studying an art where you've run through it such that if stuff goes sideways on the street or something gets gnarly, you've had that adrenaline surge where and real life self-defense and combat instances are different. You can only train so much, but you kind of acclimate your body to that flood of adrenaline and the let's go. And I've always trained in the arts that were primarily peaceful, where it's like, okay, you try and avoid the situation altogether, walk away, run away. If it does come down to it, and you have to defend yourself, defend those around you, you have the skills to do that. But I've really enjoyed studying the martial arts where it's primarily peaceful. It's to be a peacemaker versus someone who, okay, I'm just going to go and smash someone's face into the ground. Like, no, that's not what it's about.
I've done some boxing back in the day, and I hear what you're saying. You go out and just start flailing around, you're gonna be dead within 30 seconds. You're not gonna have any energy. You got to pace yourself.
Yeah.
But what the practice of martial arts, what has it taught you as you're an entrepreneur? What lessons can you translate?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. I'm studying at a really exceptional school here in Tigard, Oregon, called Pacific Rim Martial Arts Academy, and the school is built upon the Japanese philosophy of Budo. So Budo stipulates that you train on the mat to take those skills off. So because of your martial arts skills, the training, the physical discipline, the mental discipline, you're a better husband, you're a better father, you're a better entrepreneur. So just that stick-to-itiveness, attention to detail. A good martial art, particularly form-based martial arts, like a Hapkido, like an Aido, where millimeters of positioning matter in order to properly execute that form, or to make sure that joint lock functions properly, and you can actually submit someone versus failing and having them come back and wail on you. You really learn that those little nuances, and you learn to use that in speech, in action. You really do learn that it's the little things that make the biggest difference. And that's, for me at least, what martial arts has taught me, just to be very keyed in on the details. The little facial movement when you're chatting with that sales prospect on Zoom, or just being able to read a room and having that awareness of, okay, here's the exits. If stuff gets hairy in here, I know how to get out. And you're kind of, it's just reading situational awareness, which you'd probably learn in, the armed forces, or, there's lots of different places you can learn that. But for me, it's really turned that knob up where I just feel more aware going through life.
Yeah. The one thing I think is cool about individual sports, like, martial arts or any individual sport, it's just you. We're team sports. Yeah, you can have an off day and you can rely on your team members to pull you through. But if you're having an off day and it's just you, yeah, it's game over. Game over.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we were talking about the Tour de France before this, which
Yeah.
was really interesting where, from on surface, it looks like very individual, you just have those riders, but
Yeah.
you look deeper at it. You look
Yeah.
at the formation of the peloton. You look how the teams work together. You mentioned that there's the blockers, there's the rough, the heavies who come in and like are there to throw elbows. Yeah, I love that. And you start to look at so it's like individual, but it's got this team aspect where you need your teammates. You can be the most amazing, physical specimen in the world, but if your teammates aren't pulling with you or you're not on the same page, you're not going to perform your best.
Yeah. Yeah, the one guy that would always drive me nuts if I was on one of those teams is the guy who always has to fall back to the car and get all the water bottles and race back up and give them to everybody.
I was watching this amazing YouTube video where this guy, it wasn't a tire, but he basically swapped out like a sprocket or something like in motion. It was some like critical piece where they came along and it was like a NASCAR pit crew in motion where they're like changing it out. I'm just like, man, that is amazing.
There's videos you can find of, Tour de France back in the day. And when you were going up the mountains, you had to carry everything with you. These guys are riding up the mountains with tires wrapped around them because they could blow a tire out. Hey, they got to fix it themselves.
Man,
they don't have a trail team behind them to throw another bike for them, and so they can go. They got to fix that tire themselves.
Love it.
And that's what's amazing. Watching them go up. I mean, they're basically going up a side of a mountain. You're either going through the Alps, the Pyrenees, and you're just like, good grief. And I've done a lot of bike riding myself, and I love going up and down hills. That's what makes it fun, going up hills. I think the longest climb I've ever done was about a mile. Probably about a mile climb, where it was fairly steep enough that you're putting some energy to get going up there.
Yeah,
but some of they're climbing 10 and 12,000 meters at like a 6 and 7% grade. That's insane.
Yeah,
absolutely insane.
Well, there's an interesting lesson there. So my dad has this saying, we talked about leadership before, where he says leadership is learning to love the uphill, which is very true. I mean, I think it's the Marines who say the power of embracing the suck. Like if you can really lean into just those hard times, you see it in cycling, you see it in running. Like if you can kind of not take joy in, or maybe in a weird way, it's not masochistic, but it is recognizing that, okay, when it gets hard, that's when you get stronger. It's picking up that iron, picking up the weight that like builds the muscle. And that's a weird transmutation. And in my life, I don't think there were probably parts where I wasn't able to embrace it as much, but I feel like as I get further into the entrepreneurship journey, when it's hard, there's a part of me is like, what does ex-Navy SEAL Jocko Willink say? Good. It's hard. Good. It'll make you tougher. It'll make you stronger. It'll make you more resilient. Yes, it sucks, but you know what? At the end of the day, you are going to come out of this gnarly situation better than you were, stronger than you were. Smooth seas do not make skillful sailors. So be thankful for what's thrown in your way.
And that's a lot of problems I see a lot of people have, that, they'll say they want to do something, but then they get into it and it's too tough for me. I don't want to do it. You got to give it some time. You got to give it the effort. Give it the old college try.
Yeah.
Just give it a shot. Because me, experiencing those hardships, experiencing those tough things, you learn more about yourself, what you can accomplish, what you can do. And you don't want to get in that space where I gave it a try, but it wasn't for me. And then you know what that leads to? That leads to regret. And spending a life in regret, that eventually can lead to shame. And that's the way to live a life. Just experiment with life.
There's a great book called The Comfort Crisis by Michael Easter, who he basically, his thesis that he arrives at is, we humans are not well served by a road that's like Instacart deliveries, too smooth and easy, and he overlays it onto this trip out into the Alaskan wilderness. He goes with this really experienced hunting guide. And I think they take enough calories for like maybe 500 a day. So they literally have to let go and they have to kill things and bring them back. And he goes back and he interviews a few different people. He interviews the founder of Go Ruck, and kind of goes back to weighted carrying, which, if you look back, at our ancestors, when they killed the animal in the field, they were lugging that back up on their shoulder, and you were trucking that back to wherever you were base camped. So all that to say, glorying in that which is hard and challenging and seeing the value in it is such a good bit of like mental judo. It's a lot. And I know for those, anyone who's in it, by all means, do the proper, there is a fundamental level of mental health to achieve. So, I mean, it takes, I know when I was in it, like getting good counsel and good counseling is formative and essential. But once you kind of get the basic stuff in place with, your technique of choice, you can really start, building that mental strength and aptitude from a healthy place where you're like, okay, I am getting stronger rather than just like getting mashed down into the ground repeatedly.
Yeah. I know you're a reader. Back in my Army days when I was an Army officer, you always had to be reading.
Readers are leaders, man.
Leaders are readers. And I agree. Leaders are readers.
Yeah.
I do enjoy some podcasts. I don't listen to this podcast as much as I do, but podcasts and books. What are you into?
Yeah, I love the stuff that Ryan Holiday is putting out around the Stoic disciplines. I've followed along his entire journey. His newest one about justice is really solid. So I like his take. I mean, it's funny. You look at Stoicism, 2,000, 2,500-year-old philosophy, just as useful now as it was back then. The Stoics get this bad rap of like, oh, you're just like, oh, you never cry and you're just this stiff upper lip. Like, there's so much more to it. If you can be a calm, non-anxious presence in this day and age where everyone is running around with their hair on fire, like that is a legit superpower. Yeah, so that great book, podcasts. We've been talking about running a lot. I really like, he's an ultra marathoner, Rich Roll. His podcast is great. He gets some amazing interviewers. He's one of these guys who's had a podcast for 10 years or something. I mean, been podcasting since back in the day when it was just nothing. The people he chats with, he usually, whoever's launching the book usually lands on his pod first, just because he's kind of the OG. It's a really great podcast called Pivot, which has is a tech journalist, Kara Swisher, from out of the Valley, and then a guy who's an NYU Stern School of Business professor and entrepreneur named Scott Galloway. Really interesting ideas.
He's become a lot. I became a Scott Galloway here a few months ago.
Yeah, he's bursting onto the scene in a big way.
He gave that TED Talk speech. I'm like, damn, this guy's nailed it. He is on to something here.
Yeah. So he's saying some stuff that I think needs to be said in a way. Yeah. I love his take that, communication and storytelling is a skill that, AI will come and go, but, you look at what humans have always been, storytellers. You get really good at the craft of storytelling, you can build a really good career on that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I've kind of been dipping my toe in AI a little bit. And, you put something in Chat GPT and it spits something out to you. I'm like, all right, I'll reformulate it to have it say what I want to say. And I can always tell people when they just put something in Chat GPT and throw it out there. I'm like, come on, do better next time, please. But it's a good tool. I mean, it'll give me some ideas.
It's good for the raw heavy listing, just the quick and dirty rough draft. But yeah, you definitely want to layer just the more finely attuned human layer onto it. I mean, AI at this point in time is generative. So it's based on an existing body of data, which, may be a very, very large language model. But it can't do the thing that's uniquely human, which is make those, A plus B equals Y. Those just out of the blue connections where you're like, where the heck did that come from? That weird thing that's just human creativity that logically that should not even make sense. I don't know. It's doing amazing things. I still have faith that, as a creative, there is that spark of ingenuity that, I'm not saying we'll never be, I don't know, replaced by robots, but there's a thing there that's human. And it's why with Epigraph, I'm focusing on bringing the humanity back in. In an age of automation, in an age of AI, I have this hypothesis that human becomes luxury. The one-to-one, chatbots, customer service chatbots are a great example. The mindless AI chatbot, would you pay extra to actually talk with a flesh and blood human? It's like the biggest insult you can throw at someone online now is to say they're a bot. Because they're just recycling the same old tropes, the same old ideas. It's like, no, you don't have an original thought in your head. You're just a bot. I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah, it drives me nuts when I call a business and I get their bot answering. I'm just like, representative. I just keep saying representative because I can't talk. Can't talk to them.
Yeah. I think there's going to be a return to the human.
Yeah, I just want that human touch. Yeah. And I don't think that's ever going to leave. I think people are always going to want that human touch, which to me was evidenced by everything that happened in March of 2020. What's the one thing that people hungered for more than anything else was that human touch. I don't think that's ever going to leave.
Yeah. I mean, it's been brought more into clarity now, especially in the last couple of years. You look at what we went through in 2020, 2021, the people we lost, the grandparents were like so freaked out they weren't able to like see the grandkids. It's just like, coming out the other side of that, you really realize, the value of just being humans together. And it's easy to just be very unkind to someone through a screen. It's very, very hard when you're sitting down eyeball to eyeball with them and seeing them as a flesh and blood human.
Yeah. One thing that happened to me in March of 2020, that's when I really got into whiskey. That was my baptism into whiskey. And so it eventually led me to the virtual Friday whiskey hour, which is coming up this Friday. Yeah. But people want to visit your website. This is it, helloepigraph.com. People want to reach out to you, just reach out to you direct, Tom at helloepigraph.com. That's the best way to get in contact with you.
Best way, you'll find it there. Connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm there a lot. So if you just search Tom Briggs and Epigraph, I'll come up. I cast a pretty broad network. So always love sitting down and chatting with people who are, chasing after blue flame thinking, looking at making connections across industries. Just, I really get a lot of juice from just chatting with people who are sharp, intelligent, always looking to kind of flip the rocks over and see what's there. And that's why, I was super honored to come on and chat with you, Rob, because you're one of these people
coming on. We first connected online. That's how we connected. Just going to the virtual networking circuit, as I call it. Yeah, and we kind of attended a couple of the same events, and that's how we originally connected. And to me, the virtual networking just reminds me of the networking back in the day when I graduated from the Ohio State University. You went to another OSU. You went to a different OSU. I went to the Ohio State University that you put on your monkey suit, grab your resumes, go and grease some palms and meet some people. It's just the same thing, just a little bit different way.
So funny that you and I would never have crossed paths otherwise. I'm out here in Portland. There's like a friggin' nation in between us. That's one of the,
I have a better chance of crossing paths with my wife because she's in the same space that you are. You much have a better chance of that.
Yeah. But one of those gifts, the unexpected gifts of the upside down times, man. We're better at doing this, chatting through a camera, and it's the entire world, man. That's, as entrepreneurs, we can work with the entire world, which I love that. I love that.
I love it too. So I love it too. It opens up so many opportunities. Well, Tom, we're coming up on it here. Do you have any parting wisdom that you would like to give us before we call it a day?
Yeah. Tap into values, take the time, wherever you're at. If you're a founder trying to scale, if you're, if maybe you're going through a time, you have a laid off, you're looking at the next opportunity, take some time, however is best for you. Morning journaling is great. Take those walks, really capture. I'm a huge self-assessment geek. So maybe go back, take the Myers-Briggs, take the FIRO-B, take the Enneagram, take the Gallup Strengths Finder. I've found that, time invested in self-evaluation of really asking, what do I want? Okay, no, what do I really, really want? Why do I want that? Is
Yeah.
really powerful in building a scalable, sustainable career. And look back, reflect, look at those common threads, and maybe that job that seemed like an entire left turn that didn't make sense at the time. We all get to craft our own stories. So if you're at a point in your journey, you get to look back and you get to make it make sense. You get to craft the own story of your life and put yourself in a position where that sets up the next thing. So I would just call upon, anyone who's listening in or stumbles across this. Think about crafting a compelling story, and be bold. Take those risks. If you feel like something needs to be done and you're the person to do it, just get after it.
Yeah. I agree. Just take the action. That's what it's all about.
Yeah.
Don't think. Thinking is the enemy of action. If you have something, just do it. And to circle back to Nike, just do it, or whatever the inmate was, just do it. That's a great story. I'm never going to forget that one.
There you go.
But Tom, I really appreciate this conversation. I appreciate you taking time out of your day to come on here. I know you brought some great value. You brought some great nuggets, some things for me to definitely think about and hang on to, and I'm sure everybody will do the same. But hey, let's make this a great day. Let's make this a great week, great month, great year, great everything about this. Let's do the best we can. Be bold in all you do, and peace out.
Thanks.